Hi everyone, welcome to yet another module. Today we will discuss a module, logical ordering of sentences. It is also known as parajumbles or logical sequence of statements. Firstly, let's see why we are spending time to know about logical ordering of sentences. Logically ordering our sentences forms a crucial part of our writing skills. While writing, it is important for our sentences to be coherent, that is, logically ordered and connected. Also, with respect to reading skills, the comprehension of whatever you read depends on how logically the sentences are organized. In good paragraphs, sentences are arranged in logical order. Apart from these larger, broader objectives, we have the specific objectives as follows. Logical ordering of sentences or parajumbles are asked in various competitive exams and placement tests in the verbal ability section. Logical ordering of sentences form a part of reasoning ability and test your logical reasoning skills. Also, these types of questions mostly focuses on your common sense ability, and it also checks your understanding of the language. So let's see how to approach the logical ordering of sentence questions that you get for placements or other competitive exams. Firstly, we need to remember that the ability to answer questions on logical ordering depends on your practice in reading and understanding sentences. Hence, make reading a habit so that you get exposure to various types and styles of writing. Secondly, practice as many LOS questions as you can to master it. The third point is to avoid regressive reading. Now, this point is valid while solving reading comprehension questions or wherever more reading is required. Regressive reading is a process of rereading a text that you have already read. This happens when you don't apply your mind on the text when you read it the first time. This leads to loss of time. Hence, the moment you decide to go through the sentences, ensure that you have applied your full mind to it. The final point is to remember the upcoming good tips before reading the questions. Now, let's have a look at some of those useful tips to keep in mind while answering LOS questions. Tip number 1 is to check the answer choices first. This is a time-saving tip. Instead of taking time in checking the sentences one by one and creating a story of your own, first check the answer options given and substitute them to the questions to find out the one that you feel is most logical. Tip number 2 is to tell the story of the passage. Mostly, you'll notice that the sentences in the paragraph are following a chronological or just plain logical progression. So, we should try to understand the story of the passage. Look for sequencing clues, which shows logical or chronological sequence in which the sentences are moving along. Look out for sentences at the end that seem like they belong in the middle or sentences in the middle that sound like conclusions. Some of the chronology clues are first, then, next, finally, before, after, etc. Examples of logic clues are since, because, however, therefore, although, yet, nevertheless, etc. These are important and helpful words. Tip number 3 is to use pronouns to help. Words like those, these, they, it, and even article the can give you a clue as to the correct sequence of sentences in the paragraph. If the sentence says these steps, for example, you know that the sentence needs to come after a sentence that mentions steps of some sort. If the sentence says the experiment, then the chances are good that an experiment was mentioned in a prior sentence. Tip number 4 is to use transition clues to help. The first and last words of each sentence are the ones you should focus on. The last word of a sentence may introduce the main idea of the next sentence, or the first word of a sentence may refer back to an idea from the preceding sentence. So those were the 4 quick tips that you can remember while answering parajumbles. I simply repeat. Tip number 1, check the answer choices. Tip number 2, tell the story of the passage. Tip number 3, use pronouns to help. And tip number 4, use transition clues to help. I hope you found these tips useful. Now go ahead and start practicing logical ordering of sentences. Thank you and wish you all the best.